Cyberpunk 2077 gave us further insight into the Arasaka family and how they all function, with their patriarch of Saburo running the whole corporation, now at the age of 158 years old. However, it also gave us a pivotal moment that would completely change the fate of the whole world forever, that being the murder of Saburo Arasaka by his own son, the black sheep of the family, known as Yorinobu. During our journey as V, Yorinobu was painted as the main antagonist who needs to ultimately be stopped, or at least exposed for his crimes against his family and the corporate world. However, we don't get much insight into why Yorinobu is the way he is, why he's decided to go down this path and murder his own father, a father who wanted to give him a slice of his own empire. So in today's episode, we will explore the life behind the rogue son of the Arasaka family, why he chose to go against his father, and what would happen to the corporation if he were to be allowed to survive and take over all of it. Today we ask the question, was Yorinobu Arasaka actually a bad guy, or was there more to his story than this? But first, this video is sponsored by STATIK. Do you ever just really need a good, reliable charger or USB cable for data transfers of files, but all of the cheap ones seem to just not do the job? Well, with STATIK, they make some of the best chargers and cables out there that keep all of your devices fully charged and quickly, and can move large files over devices in just a few minutes. The other day, STATIK sent me this brand new MagStack Pro navy blue cable that charges my devices insanely fast and helps me grab footage from my GoPro and SSDs incredibly quickly as well. The best thing about it though is it has patented magnetic technology which guarantees that the cable does not get tangled and can be kept in one small coil, perfect for traveling with it and to keep it small and tucked away on your desk or workspace. With 100-watt blitz charge and 480 megabytes a second data transfer, this cable is perfect for day-to-day use for all devices, and like I mentioned, perfect to keep your desks and workspace nice and tidy and without cables all over the place. STATIK also makes some awesome portable chargers and a variety of other products on their website, and they ship worldwide. So if you're in the need of a solid, fast and tangle-free cable or charging device, check out STATIK utilizing my link in the description below. Not only do you get a really cool product that can get all of your devices charged super fast and can transfer files quickly, it also helps the channel out as well. So shop STATIK utilizing the link below. A big thanks to them for sponsoring this video, and with that all said, let's get back to the video. By the 1990s, Saburo Arasaka had created a complete empire with his Arasaka Corporation. What was once a weapons manufacturer during the Second World War, this corporation had now branched out into multiple sectors, had its own personal army, and actually had more power on the world stage than Japan itself. If Arasaka took actions into their own hands, it would reflect on Japan completely, but there wasn't much the Japanese government could do in terms of controlling their actions, especially as a lot of their politicians within the government were Arasaka backed. Now with the corporation at heights never seen before, his overall goal was to bring Japan back as the powerhouse of the world, to make up for their surrender in 1945 and to overthrow their rivals of the American corporation of Militech. During this same point in time, Saburo, at the age of around 80 years old, went on to get married for the third time in his life to a 40-year-old Michiko Arasaka, who was renowned all over Kyoto for being an extremely sophisticated and beautiful woman who was born into an extremely wealthy family and studied at the highest level university in Japan. Getting married to Michiko, Saburo would go on to have 2 more children to add to his existing eldest son of Kei. These 2 would of course be Yorinobu and Hanako Arasaka. However, this would tragically lead to the death of Michiko due to the complications during Hanako's birth, leaving Saburo to raise them both throughout their very young years. As a result of this, Saburo worshipped Hanako as she became the apple of his eye, as she made sure to protect her every chance he could from the dangers of the outside world, putting her through homeschool to make sure she got the best possible education that fit their worldviews and could protect her from the schools in Japan. Whereas on the other side, Yorinobu would be raised to become like him in every way possible. He would be put through the best schools in Tokyo, trained in all things that would help the corporation, and raised in a similar way to how Kei was raised. As a result of all of this, Yorinobu was given everything possible. riches, security, the best education out there, etc. He had the perfect life and was ignorant to anything else outside of their luxury Arasaka family compound in which they lived. When it came to learning about what the corporation was and what it did, Saburo was smart and made sure they did not know anything about its operations. They would only be told when they were at the right age, but for now, it had to be kept secret from them until he was ready. As the years passed, Yorinobu turned 21 years old and the day after fully graduated from Todai, the University of Tokyo. Knowing that this was the perfect time, Saburo brought Yorinobu into his private chambers at the Arasaka compound and exclaimed how proud he was of all of his achievements and told him it was time to fully understand what all of this was all about and what his plans for the Arasaka Corporation ultimately were. As Saburo sat there talking to his youngest son about his vision for the corporation and its role in the world, Yorinobu was disgusted at what his father had been doing within the corporation's operations, and also what was yet to come for them. Unlike his older brother Kei, there was no way Yorinobu could accept this fate and needed to break away from this whole family and its corporation. But as Saburo kept talking, Yorinobu just sat there in silence, listening to everything he had to say. After that meeting had finished, a big celebratory dinner was held in Yorinobu's honor. However, whilst it was going on, Yorinobu used this opportunity to escape, as he slipped out the back of the compound and vanished out into the Tokyo night. Now his own man venturing the neon streets of Japan, Yorinobu reflected on everything he had been told about Saburu's empire and what he had planned for it, and as a result, started to absolutely despise his father and everything he stood for, and on that night decided that he had to be the one to stop him. He was to be the downfall of this highly influential figure and a corporation that no one had been able to stop over the years. But at the same time, Yorinobu wanted to make sure that he could save his sister Hanako from that very same fate and would try and get her out of being involved within it. 4 years passed after Yorinobu escaped from his family compound and made a new life for himself, more specifically finding a big group of Tokyo nomads, or Bozozuku, known as the Steel Dragons. Yorinobu approached them plainly and stated he wanted to expose Arasaka at all costs. That was his new life goal. The Steel Dragons didn't take much convincing and swore themselves to his service, as they also wanted to see the downfall of Arasaka and see its empire crumble. This led to the group taking action immediately, as they would travel around at night, taken to the canyons of the city, targeting Arasaka employees and harassing them to get information on all of the current black operations that were taking place at that point in time. Yorinobu, of course, knew exactly where all of the Arasaka bases of operation and warehouses were located, and that played massively into the Steel Dragons' hands, as they would be able to target them specifically. However, they were still quite a small organization, and despite having one of the top dogs from Arasaka running the show, they still did not have the power to overwhelm Arasaka and their operations. With that said, Yorinobu didn't just stick to the Steel Dragons. He was still a highly respected corpo around the world, and he still had some very powerful contacts. So when he wasn't traveling around with the Steel Dragons, Yorinobu would fly around the world and meet with Arasaka's enemies, rival corporations looking to tear them down as well, and would help fund Yorinobu in his goals. This worked wonders, and throughout this period in time up until the 2020s, Yorinobu's rival force to go against his father, and the corruption happening within the Arasaka Corporation was rising and gaining powerful allies. That said, despite doing all of this behind the backs of Arasaka, Saburo knew about his betrayal and was deeply saddened that it had come to this. Despite seeing what Yorinobu was doing, he still deeply loved his son and wanted the best for him, and because of that, his betrayal really hurt Saburo going forward. Knowing he had to take action, Saburo made it clear that even though this was his own blood, Yorinobu and his operations had to be shut down immediately. On the other side of things, Kei held a different view and absolutely hated Yorinobu for what he had put his father and their family's corporation through, thinking he had lost all of his honor and needed to pay the ultimate price, and would seek out a way to actually kill his half-brother, removing the threat once and for all. Hanako held a similar view to her father, however, as she still ultimately loved her brother. Those two always felt like they had one of the closest bonds you could possibly have, and because of it, always looked out for each other no matter what. Yorinobu put that into his plan. His plan was to always free Hanako from his father's clutches. He did not want her to follow his path. He wanted her to break free with him and create their own lives away from this extremely dark patch on their family's name. Hanako did not know of this at first. However, secretly the two Yorinobu would meet once a month through the net and exclaim their love for each other. During that period, Yorinobu would frequently visit Night City to gather as much information about the corporation as he possibly could. That said, Arasaka would monitor his movement, and during one visit to the city, an Arasaka sweep took place where some of Yorinobu's local contacts would be captured and taken prisoner to then go on to be interrogated, and in the end would go on to be executed for their crimes against the corporation. One of these major contacts was an individual named Hiraga, who knew many of the high-ranking officials and suppliers who dealt with the Steel Dragons. Capturing this individual was vital for Arasaka, as they would finally learn about this rogue nomad group, and all of the information about them would go on to be stored within the Arasaka Towers in Night City. The plan was to have all of that information sent to Kei at the Tokyo headquarters, so he could go on to deal with it all. However, Yorinobu pulled a Yuno reverse card and intercepted that as well and grabbed the data back. With the data back in his hands, Yorinobu would find that it came with an order for the assassination of all high-ranking Steel Dragon officials. Witnessing all of this data, the contact who had recaptured it wiped it once and for all. However, in the process had to sacrifice themselves to make sure they weren't captured and interrogated for the data once again. That said, despite the data being destroyed by Yorinobu's contacts, it was rumored that the regional security director of Arasaka, Iwasao Koromiki, still had a hard copy of all of the data and would utilize that to hit back against Yorinobu and his rogue nomads. As the 2020s kicked off and the Fourth Corporate War started to take place, Yorinobu saw this as an opportunity to really hit back against Arasaka and hopefully utilize all of their enemies to destroy them once and for all. This was even approached by Militech, who looked to hire him for their own operations and utilize him in some of their attacks and data gathering operations. However, despite seriously wanting harm on the Arasaka Corporation, Yorinobu did not want to side with Militech at all. Maybe that was due to his utter dislike of megacorporation like his father's, or because as much as he hated Arasaka, he still did not want to go against his country and side with America. This was most likely the latter, as in the end, Yorinobu joined the government of Japan to supply them with information about Arasaka in an attempt to fully nationalize them and all of their assets. This did work to some extent, as after the war most of Arasaka and Militech were nationalized by their governments. However, it wasn't a complete success, because after the war, Yorinobu saw that despite Arasaka being hit by a nuclear terrorist attack, they still continued and carried back on. That made him realize in that very moment that Arasaka simply cannot be destroyed from the outside. No matter what you hit it with, it would always overcome it. The only way he could actually stop them once and for all was from within it, working alongside the Arasaka workers and management and taking them down within them with him at the helm. This would be helped by the fact that Kei took the punishment for the Night City attack and was forced by Rogue and Spider Murphy to end their own life, taking him out of the equation and putting Yorinobu as next in line to take all of the Arasaka Corporation. Acknowledging the death of his half-brother, Yorinobu went on to attend his funeral after years of not seeing his family in person. It was here where Yorinobu and Saburo would reconcile with each other once again, and after a long, tense day with the help from his sister Hanako, Yorinobu would once again be welcomed back into the family and into the corporation once again. And by 2045, Yorinobu was fully integrated into the corporation and was in charge of the Taka faction of it. However, Saburo's Kiji faction still oversaw everything and ran all of the major operations, meaning that anything Yorinobu wanted to do to shut them down from the inside had to be done with the utmost secrecy. But ultimately, it was no use. He had to just abide his time and wait for the perfect moment to make his stand and finally try and cause some major damage from within. By 2077, that time had finally come, and Yorinobu knew he had to do something now or he would never get that opportunity. Despite being put back into the family back in 2045 and just prior, Yorinobu hadn't actually spoken to his father face to face for decades, as he was off doing his own business and planning his own operations. In the middle of 2077, Yorinobu contacted a Netwatch operations manager who went by the name Ronald Cheever. The two had been watching closely the project of the Relic and communicated with each other a new opportunity for them to work together to retrieve a sample of the biochip which would house a valid engram within it. Communicating a few times, Yorinobu did not hesitate and did just that, stealing the Relic prototype from one of his father's laboratories in Tokyo. Now with it in his possession, Yorinobu sought out to put the perfect engram within it and made sure to place within it the engram of Johnny Silverhand. Why Johnny? Well, that is pretty unknown. However, it's most likely due to Johnny's outright hatred for Arasaka, and maybe Yorinobu saw some similarities between him and Johnny. End of the day, it was quite a statement to place within their priceless relic an old rocker boy who spent the majority of his years fighting back against the corporations, especially Arasaka, who had taken so much of his life away over the years. Despite all of this, Anders Hellman, the one responsible for the relic, reached out to Yorinobu, stating that the relic was not ready for use in its current state, and that Hellman urged Yorinobu to speak with his father before anything else happened. This of course led to the final confrontation within Night City, where Saburo would meet with his son at his penthouse suite atop of the Konbeki Plaza Hotel. After years of despising what his father had been doing behind closed doors at the corporation, Yorinobu had finally snapped, and took this opportunity to remove Saburo once and for all, and replace him as the ruler of the corporation. With that patricide a success, Yorinobu put up a front that his father was killed from external factors, which was down to someone poisoning him. This was of course helped with the fact that both V and Jackie Wells were found in the apartment at that specific time, meaning that Yorinobu could put all of the blame on other people and he could look like a grieving son, and for a time Hanako would believe it as well. However, thanks to V escaping with the relic, they would of course be able to reveal the truth about what happened on that day and could fully expose all of what Yorinobu had done and what he planned to do for the corporation of Arasaka now that he was in charge. Ultimately, the fate of Yorinobu would be in the hands of V and their actions. If V were to side with Hanako and reveal what he had truly done to his own father, the Arasaka Corporation, still loyal to Saburo, would take matters into their own hands by finding Yorinobu in a last stand fight off within the Night City headquarters and implant Saburo's engram into Yorinobu's body. This would do a couple of things. It would remove the black sheep of the family once and for all and punish him for how many times he had betrayed the family. It also kept Saburo in charge of the corporation again, but this time within a much younger, fitter and capable body, and it displayed to the world the true power of their relic technology, helping them to grow even further and do the opposite of what Yorinobu wanted. And whilst it isn't confirmed, but it would most likely help Arasaka's stocks go way up, and they could become even bigger than their rivals at Militech. However, if V were to let Arasaka just carry on with their own thing, leaving Hanako to wait at Embers for an eternity, Yorinobu's plan would succeed and Arasaka would dwindle over the years, as it is shown in 2079 that Arasaka have completely gone from Night City as a whole and retreated back to Japan, where their corporation is in freefall. His father's legacy was now gone. Their black operations were no more, and corporations like Militech had free reign over areas once controlled by Arasaka. Who knows what Yorinobu's plans would be after all of that took place? Maybe he'd form back into his nomad clan of the Steel Dragons and fight back against other mega corporations that were corrupt in Japan. Maybe he could just live a peaceful life with the assets he had left in his account. But this all raises the big question, and the title of this video: is Yorinobu actually the bad guy? Well, it all really depends on your perspective of what is going on. Of course, as an Arasaka loyalist, Yorinobu's actions lack honour and go against everything they stand for. He betrayed his family, he killed people in his own corporation, and did everything possible to sabotage them. However, Yorinobu's problem was with how Arasaka did its business. He did not like that Saburo wanted global domination and had all of these black operations taking place all over the world. He actually was against the corruption that was quite rampant in the corporation, and arguably you could say his actions were very similar to Johnny Silverhands, albeit with him working from the inside rather than the outside. I think it's quite fitting that the engram he chose to place within the relic was the anarchistic rocker who helped destroy their Night City base in the first place. Bringing the relic with him in it back to Night City on the day that his father gets murdered is almost poetic and brings it almost full circle with what happened with Johnny. It's that cataclysm moment. The towers falling saw the destruction of Arasaka and then being weakened in the process. And this moment here was the death of their emperor and long-standing leader, and the collapse of Arasaka once again. Granted, Yorinobu's actions were brutal. Sending in troops to kill V, Takemura and almost kill Hanako is incredibly brutal. But is it any less brutal than what Johnny and his teams did back in 2013 and 2023? Everyone has killed for their goals. Have they ever questioned who they killed? V has slaughtered half the city to get what they want. Why are they deemed as good and Yorinobu, who simply wants to see the end of his father's corrupt ways, bad? Of course, it's all down to perspective, but I'd argue that Yorinobu's story is no different to Johnny's, to V's, to Songbird's, to anyone's in Night unite city ultimately. All of them have to go through some form of sacrifice to get their personal goal, and sometimes you have to question how far you'll go to get what you want. And because of it, labeling Yorinobu and his actions as good and bad can't just be black and white. There are more layers to it than just him being the bad guy in the story, in a similar way to the way that Songbird can't just be good or bad. But what do you think? Good or bad, or is there more to it than just that? But with that all said, this has been the story behind Yorinobu and how he got to where he is today in 2077 and later in 2079. I want to say a big thanks for watching once again, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think about Yorinobu and the Arasaka family in general, because I don't think we can just label them as being evil. I think there's far more to it than just that. I want to say a big thank you to STATIK for sponsoring this video. If you want to treat yourself to a great new USB-C cable that doesn't tangle, charges incredibly fast, and has fast data transfer, then follow my link in the description below. It helps this channel out a lot as well. Also, big thanks to my patrons for your constant support, including my small fishes, my big fish, This Mind of Mine and Anthony Bonfiglio, my YouTube channel Wise One, Sith Lord 906, Video Gamer 75, Kosh 1516, the Nanontarium and V3XXE, my shark Dan F, and my Megalodons, Sinus and Hazy Thoughts. Oh, and before I go, I've also teamed up with Zorian Games, the original creators of the Cyberpunk brand, so if you want to grab any of their lore books or set up a TTRPG for yourselves, I've got a link to their shop in my description as well, where you can get 10% off of their stuff, so make the most of that. I've got pretty much all of the Cyberpunk lore books now, and I cannot recommend them enough. But anyways, thank you for watching once again, and I shall see you all in the next one. Cheers.